Before today's story begins, a warning. If you have a weak heart, stop the video now. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights. I'm Azad, and you're watching Chomchom. Today's terrifying real experience was sent by our viewer, Rehan. Let's step into the darkness. Some stories don't fade with time. They get darker. Across frozen mountains in Siberia, silent valleys in Norway, and quiet beaches in Australia, 3 separate incidents left behind the same terrifying pattern. People who vanished from logic itself. No clear killers. No clean explanations, only bodies, stripped of identity, surrounded by strange clues and moments that feel almost too wrong to be natural. From sudden deaths in the Hamad Daban Pass, to a woman who erased her own existence in Isdalen, to a man who left behind only a coded message on Somerton Beach. Every case feels isolated, but together they start to feel connected, like pieces of something unfinished, something watching from behind the silence. And the worst part, even after decades of investigation, we still don't know what really happened. The mountains of Siberia have always carried a chilling silence. One that feels almost alive. Among them lies the remote and unforgiving Hamadaban Pass, a place where nature itself seems to watch and wait. On August 2, 1993, a group of 7 young hikers set out into this desolate wilderness under the leadership of Ludmila Korovina, a highly experienced mountaineer. The group included energetic youths, among them Sasha Krishin, whom Ludmila loved like her own son, and others eager to prove themselves worthy of her respect. The weather forecast had promised clear skies, but the mountains had other plans. Within days, the group was ambushed by a relentless storm, freezing rain mixed with sharp, stinging snow. The wind howled like something unnatural, cutting through their clothes and into their bones. Still, they pressed on. They were young, determined, and perhaps too confident. On the night of August 4, Ludmila made a decision that would later haunt investigators. Instead of seeking shelter in the nearby forest, she ordered the group to camp on an exposed slope, completely vulnerable to the raging storm. Thunder cracked overhead, lightning tore through the sky, and the group remained out in the open, as if trapped under something unseen. Morning came, but not with relief. As the group packed their gear and began descending the mountain, something unthinkable happened. Without warning, Sasha suddenly staggered. Blood began pouring from his nose, then his ears, then his mouth. He collapsed onto the frozen ground, convulsing violently. Within seconds, he was dead. No illness, no warning, just sudden, horrifying death. The group froze in shock. Ludmila rushed to his side, her face pale with disbelief. This was not just a student, this was someone she had raised like family. Fighting back panic, she ordered the others to continue down the mountain while she stayed behind with Sasha's body. Reluctantly, they obeyed, but they hadn't even made it a minute away when Ludmila screamed, a scream so filled with terror that it echoed through the mountains like a warning. They ran back, and what they saw next would shatter their reality forever. Ludmila lay beside Sasha, her body twisted unnaturally, blood pouring from her face, just like his. She wasn't moving. She was dead. The remaining members of the group stood frozen on the mountainside, unable to understand what they had just witnessed. 2 deaths, back to back,
with no warning, no injury, and no visible cause. Panic spread like wildfire. According to survivor testimony, the group began to break apart emotionally almost instantly. Some started crying uncontrollably, others screamed into the freezing wind, and a few simply stood in shock as if their minds had shut down completely. Then it got worse. Two of the hikers, Timur and Vika, suddenly began behaving violently. They tore at their own clothing, scratching their skin as if trying to escape something trapped beneath it. Their movements became erratic, almost animal-like. Within moments, they collapsed into the snow, twitching and foaming at the mouth. At the same time, Tatiana began striking her own head against nearby rocks, repeating words no one could understand. Dennis, terrified, ran between the rocks as if he was being chased by something invisible. And Rika, the youngest in the group, turned suddenly and bit Valya when she tried to help her. It was no longer a rescue situation. It was chaos. Valya Utachenko, the only remaining member who still had partial control of herself, realized something horrifying. Whatever was happening was affecting everyone differently, but killing them all the same. Within minutes, Dennis collapsed without warning. Blood began leaking from his nose, ears, and mouth, identical to Sasha and Ludmila. One by one, the group was disappearing into silence. Valya and Dennis had become the last ones standing, but not for long. Dennis, trembling and barely conscious, told her to abandon everything except essentials and run. But before she could fully process his words, she looked up and saw him fall, just like the others, dead. Valya was now completely alone. No food, no supplies, no help, only the frozen mountains and the echo of something she could not explain. That night, she hid in the forest at the base of the mountain, sleeping in terror under the freezing wind, convinced that whatever had killed her friends might still be nearby.
Dawn came slowly over the frozen Siberian mountains, but for Valya, there was no sense of relief, only silence. A heavy, unnatural silence, as if the entire valley was holding its breath after the nightmare that had unfolded. With no supplies and barely any strength left, she forced herself to climb back toward the slope where the camp had been. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the mountain itself was trying to stop her from returning. What she found up there was beyond anything she could have imagined. The bodies of her friends were scattered across the snowfield, lifeless, twisted in unnatural positions, as though they had all tried to escape something invisible at the exact same moment they died. Their faces were frozen in expressions of pure terror. Some were lying close together, as if they had tried to comfort each other in their final seconds. Others were a short distance away, as if they had run for their lives from something that could not be seen. There were no clear signs of struggle, no footprints of an attacker, no evidence of animals or natural disaster strong enough to explain such horror. Only silence and death. Valya wandered through the scene in shock for 3 full days after that, surviving against all odds. She followed distant utility lines, hoping they would lead her to civilization, but instead they guided her to an abandoned settlement, empty, decayed, and lifeless. It felt like even the world had turned its back on what happened there. When she finally reached civilization, she was no longer the same person. She could barely speak, her mind fractured by what she had seen on that mountain. Rescue teams later confirmed the deaths of all 6 other hikers. Autopsies showed something even more disturbing. All of the victims were otherwise physically healthy, yet suffered internal injuries consistent with extreme trauma and sudden collapse without a clear cause. No poison, no attack, no known disease, just unexplained death. To this day, investigators still cannot agree on what truly happened in the Hamar-Dabon Pass. Some speak of avalanches, others of rare environmental conditions, but none can fully explain the terror described by the sole survivor. And so the mountain remains silent, as if it is still waiting for the next group to arrive. Before the most terrifying part of the story begins, I need to ask, are you listening from somewhere isolated right now? Is your heart starting to race? Don't forget to tell me in the comments. And if you're new here, subscribe or follow now to join this journey into fear. In the cold, mist-covered mountains of Norway, there is a valley so quiet that even the wind seems to hesitate before entering it. Isdalen Valley near Bergen. Locals often call it Death Valley, not because of legend alone, but because of what was discovered there on a winter day in 1970. On November 29th, a father hiking with his two daughters made a discovery that would haunt Norway for decades. Deep inside the frozen valley, they found the body of a woman. She was lying in the snow, partially burned, as if fire had touched her but failed to fully consume her. Around her were strange and unsettling objects: an empty liquor bottle, a packet of sleeping pills, 2 plastic containers that still carried the strong smell of petrol, and scattered personal items that made no sense together. The authorities quickly arrived, but what they uncovered only deepened the mystery. The woman had no identity. None at all. All labels had been carefully removed from her clothing, every single piece of fabric stripped of origin. Even her fingerprints appeared intentionally damaged, as if someone had tried to erase her existence from the world itself. Her dental records matched no known person in any database. It was as if she had never truly lived. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered something even more disturbing: 2 suitcases hidden at a nearby train station. Inside were wigs of different styles and colors, multiple outfits with all labels cut out, silver spoons carefully stored like trophies, and a notebook filled with strange coded writings. Nothing about her life made sense, and yet it was clear she had been traveling across Europe for a long time. As investigators continued examining the suitcase and belongings, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. This woman had not been stationary. She had been moving constantly across Europe, almost like someone trying to stay one step ahead of an unseen pursuer. Her coded notebook, once decoded, revealed fragments of hotel stays, train routes, and multiple identities. At least 8 different passports and names were linked to her movements. Every trace pointed to a life built on deception or survival. Witnesses who had seen her described her in unsettling ways. She was elegant, polished, and strangely confident, but there was always something off. People remembered her wearing wigs in public, changing her appearance frequently, and speaking several languages fluently. Yet no one could ever place her origin. No country, no family, no real name. She was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Then came the most disturbing testimony. A witness claimed that just days before her death, the woman was being followed. Two men in dark coats purportedly trailed her movements through Bergen. They never interacted with her openly, but they were always nearby, watching, like shadows that refused to disappear. This led investigators into a darker theory. Was she a spy? Some believed she might have been involved in Cold War intelligence work, moving between countries under false identities. Others suspected smuggling networks or secret political operations. But none of these theories could be proven. Every lead ended in silence. And then came her final moments in Isdalen Valley, where her story abruptly ended in fire, poison, and mystery. Even today, no one knows who she truly was. Only one thing is certain. She did everything possible to make sure the world would never find her real identity. After her body was recovered, the investigation turned into one of the most complex and haunting cases in Norwegian history. Officials tried everything: interviews, international checks, passport verification, but every path seemed to lead into a dead end. Even the cause of death remained uncertain. Some evidence suggested poisoning from sleeping pills. Other signs pointed toward fire-related injuries combined with possible chemical exposure. Yet nothing clearly explained why she was in that remote valley, or how her life ended in such a controlled, almost ritual-like manner. The most disturbing detail was the precision. Her belongings had been stripped of identity with extreme care, labels removed, traces erased, fingerprints damaged. It wasn't random, it looked intentional, as if someone had trained her to disappear completely, or she had been trained to erase herself. Despite global efforts, no missing person report ever matched her description. No family came forward, no country claimed her, no identity was ever confirmed. She became known only as the Isdal woman. Over time, theories multiplied. Some believed she was a Cold War intelligence agent eliminated after a failed mission. Others suggested she was involved in illegal trafficking networks across Europe. A few even speculated she had been running from powerful individuals who eventually caught up with her. But none of these theories were ever proven. The truth dissolved into speculation. To this day, her identity remains unknown, her final hours still debated, and her life before Isdalen completely erased from history. She remains one of Norway's most unsettling mysteries, a woman who lived without a name and died without answers. Before the most terrifying part of the story begins, I need to ask, are you listening from somewhere isolated right now? Is your heart starting to race? Don't forget to tell me in the comments. And if you're new here, subscribe or follow now to join this journey into fear. On a warm summer morning in Adelaide, Australia, something strange happened at Somerton Beach on December 1st, 1948. A man was found sitting upright against a seawall, as if he had simply fallen asleep while watching the ocean. But he was not asleep. He was dead. The man appeared to be in his mid-40s or 50s. He was dressed neatly in a suit, polished shoes, and a tie. almost as if he had come from a formal event. Yet something immediately stood out to investigators. All the labels had been carefully removed from his clothing. No name, no brand, no identity. Even more disturbing, his fingerprints did not match any known records at the time. It was as if he had never existed in official databases. There were no signs of struggle, no obvious injuries, and no immediate explanation for his death. But the real mystery began when investigators searched his belongings more closely. Inside a hidden pocket, they found a small, torn piece of paper. On it were two words, tamam shud, a Persian phrase meaning ended or finished. The note had been ripped from a rare book called The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a philosophical poetry collection. Police launched a public appeal, and remarkably, a man came forward claiming he had found the exact book the scrap came from. Inside that book, things became even stranger. A hidden phone number, a series of mysterious letters, and what looked like an unsolved coded message. Nothing about the man made sense anymore. The investigation into the Somerton Beach man quickly grew more complicated as detectives tried to trace every small clue left behind. The phone number found in the book led them to a local nurse named Jessica Thompson, who lived near the beach. When questioned, she denied knowing the man. But witnesses told a different story. Some claimed they had seen her with him shortly before his death. This contradiction made the case even more suspicious, as if there was a hidden connection neither side wanted to reveal. Inside the same copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, police discovered a series of strange letters written in a coded pattern. It didn't match any known language or simple cipher. Experts tried for years to decode it, but the message remained unreadable. It felt deliberate, as if whoever wrote it never intended for it to be understood. With no identity, no clear cause of death, and no confirmed explanation for the code, theories began to spread rapidly. Some believed he was a spy involved in Cold War intelligence operations. Others suggested a secret romantic relationship that ended in tragedy. A few even speculated he may have been part of a larger covert network operating in Australia at the time. But nothing could be proven. Every lead ended in uncertainty, and the man at Somerton Beach remained a mystery, preserved in silence, with only a coded message left behind, like a final warning. For decades, the Somerton Beach case remained one of Australia's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. Investigators tried again and again to break the coded message found in the Rubaiyat, but every attempt failed. The symbols refused to reveal any meaningful pattern, as if the message itself was designed to resist human understanding. With time, the case grew colder. Files were archived, leads disappeared, and the unknown man became a symbol of unanswered questions. People began calling him simply the Somerton Man. Speculation never truly stopped. Some insisted he was a spy who had been eliminated quietly. Others believed he had been involved in a secret relationship that ended in betrayal. A few even thought the message might be linked to a hidden intelligence operation during the early Cold War era. But none of these theories could be confirmed. Then, decades later,
modern technology finally brought a partial answer. In 2022, advanced DNA analysis helped researchers identify the man as Carl Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne. For the first time in over 70 years, the mystery had a name attached to it. But even this breakthrough did not bring peace to the case, because while his identity was finally uncovered, the biggest questions remained unanswered. Why was he at Somerton Beach that day? What did the coded message truly mean? And how did his life end in such a silent, controlled, and unexplained way? Even today, the Somerton Man story remains a haunting reminder that identification does not always equal explanation. Some mysteries, even after being solved, still refuse to make sense.
And with that, tonight's terrifying story comes to an end. But remember, the deeper the night grows, the thicker the hidden mysteries become. Follow or subscribe now for more horrifying stories, if you dare.